Hello, friends. Welcome aboard the Round Trip Stories podcast, where we share stories of moving around the world and back again, reflecting on the lessons we've learned along the way. My name is Melissa.
And my name is Tracy, and we are so glad you're joining us for today's episode. Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with J.K. Amerson López, author of the book Embassy Kid. Kelly grew up in a U.S. diplomat family in the 1950s and 1960s in Latin America, Italy, and Spain. In the early 70s, she aged out of her diplomat family and returned to the U.S. for university. Now a young adult, she explored college, dance, and living in several different states from Colorado to New York for 10 years until she found solid ground. Her dance teaching and Spanish language connected her to her communities and eventually her Puerto Rican-American husband. So buckle your seatbelts and make sure your tray tables and seats are in their upright positions as part 2 of Kelly's round trip story gets ready for takeoff. Well, welcome back to part 2 of our interview with J.K. Amerson López. She's the author of Embassy Kid. And so we have diplomatic stories for you. And this is our part 2 about the return. She goes by Kelly. So Kelly, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thrilled to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Just for those who might not have heard part 1, everybody go back and listen to part 1. Would you give us just a brief overview of where you lived abroad and how long you were there?
Sure. Well, my family and I lived in Venezuela, Italy, and Colombia from 1955 until 1966, when I was a baby up through about age 12. And then after living in the States for 5 years, we moved to Spain from 1971 to 1973.
All right. And then when and why did you return to the United States?
Well, there came a time for college, and my family was still living out my father's foreign service career, but in a way, I aged out. And when you
Oh.
age out, almost all of us leave overseas and come back to the home country. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I managed to do a year at university in Madrid, which was a great way to get a jump start on my college education, but eventually came back in 1973 to continue my college education in the States, returning home, although it didn't exactly feel like home, and that's a little
Right.
tricky there.
Yeah.
And then tell us a little bit about what you did at that point, and then fast forward to talk about what you're doing now.
And fast forward. Well, I ended up at a small liberal arts in Ohio, Hiram College, in the town that's so small it's called a hamlet. And when I saw that, I thought, uh-oh, I'm not sure. After living in big cities all my life, I had chosen to go to a state in which I knew no one, to a college in which I knew the college president, and that was it, in a hamlet. And I thought, uh-oh, this may not be that good of a fit. And in fact, it was a very tough fit. And I realized that I left Hiram thinking I was going to put my tail between my legs and go home. But in fact, I had an itch. I wanted to dance. And my mother had been a dancer, and I had danced off and on throughout my childhood. And it turned out that one of my mother's mentors was still teaching a dance workshop in Colorado, at Colorado College. And so with about that much thought, I said, no, I'm not going to return home. I'm going to Colorado. And I hitched a ride with some people in a small car in which they had packed coyote pups and me.
What?
So I sat in the back seat with wild coyotes.
Oh, my goodness.
Why not? You just do these things, right? It's crazy.
Okay. Yeah. These are the great
You just said,
stories.
they're going to Colorado. I'll just hitch a ride. They were going to let the little wolves run free. But they dropped me off at Colorado College, and I spent a couple of months there, realizing that all of a sudden I felt at home in this thing called modern dance.
Oh.
And I felt like I knew people. I felt like I found my place. And when a group of them turned out to be from Minnesota, where my family had roots, where I should have gone to college in the first place, although you couldn't tell me that then, I followed them to Minnesota and made my living as a dancer, dance teacher, choreographer for about 5
Hmm.
years. And then met a teacher who I followed to New York. And so, with about the same amount of knowledge that I used in going to Colorado, I said, I'm going to New York. And I did. And I did. And dance helped me find a job in a health club where I met my husband. We forged a life together, had a daughter, raised her in upstate New York, and we retired to South Florida about 12 years ago. That, in a
Okay.
nutshell, is me.
Well, tell us a little bit about that initial reentry transition back to life in the United States.
Well, in later years, I asked my parents why they didn't make me go to college in the Twin Cities, which would have been logical. I had family there. And they looked
Mhm.
at me and laughed and said, Make you?
Yeah.
I have a daughter of my own, and now I understand the humor. You can't.
Mhm.
But in Madrid, I met a college president of a program that would transfer all of my credits from the University of Madrid to Hiram College, and that I would
Mm.
start as a sophomore. And that was good enough for me. And
Mhm.
so I landed in this small liberal arts school. Things started pretty well. I picked a comparative literature major so that I was getting a chance to use my languages, um, and then affiliated myself with the theater department, who were all pretending to be other people, just like I had been all my life.
Okay.
So I'd sort of found my people. Um, and then a friend from Madrid was even at another school in Ohio, so I could travel and see him. So the first few months were pretty well balanced, and I thought I really had this thing figured out. But Comp Lit turned out to be more academic. It didn't have the multicultural earmarks that I now realize I was really searching for.
Mhm.
And just reading in other languages didn't make that connection for me. And the theater department friendships became a little brittle, and so there went that make-believe world, and I lost that footing.
Mm.
And I packed up my trunk, it was one of those old steamer trunks, and as I was packing it up to return home, my parents were living in Rome once again, I realized that I found somehow, this is before the internet, I couldn't Google it, but somehow I figured out my mother's old dance teacher was teaching in Colorado, and if I could just get there, I thought there might be something for me. Well,
Mhm.
I did. I jumped into the car with the coyotes, and it turns out to have given me a home that I didn't even realize I was missing. And those connections between people in the magic of using my body and working with rhythms and working with other people, uh, I earned some college credits, but I realized, no, I think I have found what I want to do. And that's what I decided to do at that point.
So we have a dance teacher among us. I love that.
How did we do this before the internet?
How
Like,
did we?
like you said, how did you figure out that your mother's friend was teaching dance in Colorado when you were living in Ohio? And I bet, think there was communication. People wrote letters. Your mother probably told you, somehow it came up. Nowadays, there's no time required between being curious about something and looking for the information and finding something. So I'm just thinking about how different it is, but how wonderful that
You found your place in dance and your people.
yeah.
I think it was a leap of faith and probably quite a bit of foolishness at the same time. What did I think was gonna happen if I went to Colorado? I had no plans. Once that was over, what was gonna happen?
Mhm.
But I kind of trusted the process.
Mhm.
Um, and my parents held their breath because 'cause they're living overseas, and where is she? What is she doing? Uh, I'm sure there were those
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah.
But I was on my own, so I could just pick up and go.
Well, tell us a story about something that was hard during that season or even seasons to come related to your moving back and resettling.
Learning how to live as an adult on my own was really, a challenge. You know, living as I did for 18 years, following the new requirements of each place, you learn the language, you make new friends, you excel at whatever school system you're suddenly in, and you're
Mhm.
hitting all the marks, right? Getting A's, acing it. And I had very, very little experience in setting my own goals
Hmm.
and mapping
Mm.
out my own path. And it took me, even with dance carrying me forward, it took me a good decade before my feet were really on solid ground. I don't
Mhm.
know how normal or unusual that is, but I had a lot of things to work through from coming up that way, I think. I was really unsure of myself. Despite all of this rather sophisticated background,
Mhm.
was a bit of a flounderer when it came to expressing my own career
Mhm.
goals. What did I want to do? Why didn't I go into the Foreign Service?
Hmm.
Mhm.
I was so eager to make my own life that I didn't wanna follow something that my father had done. I didn't wanna live that way anymore, but I would have
Mhm.
been a great Foreign Service officer, but no. It was very haphazard, but the path led me to a health club in New York City back when Jane Fonda was wearing tights and leotards and doing jazz aerobics
And leg warmers?
and leg warmers, and yeah. But so I took my dance passion and became an exercise instructor at the same time as I was taking classes and performing, and met my husband at that health club. The interest in college, when I realized I finally kind of wore out my dance energy, went back to college full time in New York City, got a degree in urban affairs. It opened the door to public administration and government, um, and uh, with a graduate degree ahead. And we lived in upstate New York, where I worked for the governor of the state of New York in his budget office for a full career. At the same time, I was always teaching exercise part-time.
Mhm.
So I kept that little passion going, and when we retired, I found myself teaching exercise every morning in
Wow.
swimming pools, under palm trees, and getting paid for it.
Thank you for telling us that story. I think there are a lot of things that we can glean from it. Like what you said about you didn't have an opportunity to make your own goals. And I think about how, as parents, we have to release, even though we don't want to, right? We have to release responsibility and give it to our kids so that they can feel the agency of making their own goals and sometimes failing.
Mhm.
And then it gives them more confidence to move forward. And every child every young adult is on a different time frame.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it took you 10 years. It might take somebody shorter or longer to just kind of find where they are. But I think the end goal isn't the point to find where you are. I think that whole process grows us as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think each of us are different. My sister and I have completely different takes on our upbringing. She's a different person. She's on her own 2 feet. She is very focused, very direct, had an amazing career, no doubt. I mean, I'm sure she's had doubts and questions, but the 10 years of wandering through the wilderness like I had was not a problem for her.
Isn't that interesting? Even kids that grow up in the same family, whether they're moving or not, will have different experiences because of their ages and personalities. And even in the same family, you still end up with different perspectives and experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Kelly, tell us a story about something that was helpful during your transition and your life since then.
Well, I had to really think about this question. And what I discovered was that Spanish turned out to be a support for me throughout my
Hmm.
life. I didn't realize until I was writing the book that Spanish was actually my first language, or is my first language, because Josefina taught me Spanish when I was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a reason that when I speak Spanish, I feel centered and sturdy and confident. A slightly different side of my personality comes out. My voice changes. And the fact that I've been so lucky to have the language carry me through most of my childhood gave me, in a way, the consistency to carry me forward into my adult life. It was my speaking Spanish that attracted my husband to me.
Dun, dun,
He's from
dun.
Puerto Rico. Oh, he
Mhm.
was smitten. He wouldn't mind me saying that. He heard me speaking Spanish to someone in the health club, and
Uh-huh.
his heart went ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom.
Oh.
Who is this lovely lady?
And wow, how does she speak such good Spanish? Well, so
Yes.
Spanish really brought us together, and um, just like Spanish and Italian were family languages for me growing up, Spanish is our family language. We don't speak Spanish at home all the time, but if
Mm-hmm.
something important needs to be said, it comes out in Spanish.
Hmm.
Isn't that
Yeah,
interesting?
yeah,
Mhm.
it really is something. And having the language to fall back on, even now. Where do I live? South Florida. Who speaks
Mm.
Spanish? South Florida.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
whether it's
And
with my best
California
friend from
too.
and California,
Yes.
Spanish is the second most spoken language in this country, I think. It was our secret language there, but it's not secret anymore. Um, so I've been so fortunate to be able to have Spanish in my back pocket all my life, carrying me forward from an infant right up to now at age 71.
I actually met my husband and spoke Spanish to him too. And he was like, "What? How do you speak Spanish?" so Spanish is a
Excellent.
big part of my family's story as well. And Melissa's a bilingual teacher.
Mhm. I have always said that I don't think my husband would have married me if I didn't speak Spanish
Oh.
because he grew up in Panama, and I think he probably always expected that he was going to marry some Latina, and I am not a Latina, but at least I speak Spanish.
You checked
I
all the
always
boxes.
Well, it gives you something in common right away, and that feels
Mhm.
really good. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and we know that speaking another language, it's not just a skill. It reflects a different perspective on the world and a different experience, and it's
It becomes part of your identity.
It's more than just something that you know how to do.
Yep.
And
It's a way of viewing the world.
And it's your people, too.
Mhm.
Our people
Yeah.
can be English speakers. Our people are also Spanish speakers.
Yes.
Well, my last question for your interview is what we like to call our choose your own adventure question. And so pick one of these questions to answer. So first, what rhythms do you have in place which allow you to remember your time abroad? Or second, what do you do with all the feels, memories, relationships, love for the place and people? Or third, do you have a favorite funny story about your time abroad or transition back? So which of those do you want to answer?
Well, I thought I would answer what do I do with all the stuff from those 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the book that is now called Embassy Kid has been in the world just since April of this year, but it was in my head probably for 3 decades in one form or another as I tried to figure out what did all that mean? Where did we
Mm-hmm.
live? What was that like? Especially because the world I was inhabiting as an adult had 0 in common with international
Yeah.
relations and travel and multicultural. Some, but not much. So I started writing stories, short stories about the experience of being an embassy kid years ago. And in fact, as I was writing, I would call it telling my story, finding my home,
Mm.
right? If I can put it
Mm-hmm.
on paper, I can kind of rebuild it to inhabit there again. And in addition to my own memories, I had stories that my parents had written down or stories that we told as a family about, you remember when?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the story that opens Embassy Kid is a family story. You remember when the dictator flew over our house into exile? Well,
Hmm.
I don't remember that, but my parents lived through it. And so I had the joy of being able to turn to my parents' letters, journals, and books to recount really what happened
Mm-hmm.
in this journey. My mother wrote a letter home to her family every Monday for 30 years. What a treasure trove. I had all of that to work with. Yeah. Yeah.
And did they keep all of those letters?
Yes.
Oh, what a
So I,
gift.
yeah. So I had 5 binders of letters that were contemporary to the time about me
Mm-hmm.
growing up and who did what and what did she buy at the market and what election was happening. So I feel so fortunate to be able to weave all of that together into a narrative that
Mm-hmm.
tells about that era in the world and our
Yeah.
small role in it. And to live with my parents' words, now that they are
Mm-hmm.
gone, their words live on and they live on through this book.
Yeah.
Yes, allowing your
Mm.
family to live on and their stories to be in other people's minds. Thank you for writing that book.
Oh,
Mhm.
thank you for reading that book.
You talk about what your dad did, but then you talk about the life of the family of the diplomat. And that is so fascinating because even though Melissa and I have been overseas and we've probably met people who worked at the consulate or the embassy, but we didn't live that life. And so that's fascinating. All right. Well, we have a couple more questions as we end our interview. First, I'd like to ask you if you could tell us a final story about how your time abroad continues to add value to your life now.
Yes. Just this morning, I was in a swimming pool with mermaids. We are a
Ooh.
group of women of a certain age who are available at 8:30 on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And we gather to do water exercise and to laugh and to encourage each other and to find out what's going on in each other's life. And I think I am the chief mermaid. I don't know quite how it happened, other than my good friend from Bogota, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, asked me to come to the pool one Friday morning to watch her swim because she had learned how to swim in her 50s, and she was so proud of that. Well, I went to the pool, and son of a gun, there she was actually swimming. She really was swimming. And so when she said, "Won't you come and meet me here on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays so I could keep practicing?" I couldn't say, "Honey, I'm retired. I don't do anything that I don't have to at this hour." I said, "Of course. Of course." And I started going, and eventually we started attracting different people. Different women would see us in the pool and realize, oh, they look like they're having fun. Well, we have a group of about 20. We call ourselves the Mermaids of Thoroughbred Lakes. And there are some little children that are pretty sure that we have fishtails, at least when we're underwater. Now, how does this relate to my growing up? Well, it has to do with community. Every one of those women was feeling alone in her neighborhood and did not know the other women that are in that pool now. And the water is something of a social lubricant. You're childlike. It really is. You
I love
splash.
that.
You get along. You're silly. You are trying something that's challenging but having fun. You're actually getting exercise, which is even better.
You're vulnerable in a way because you're not clothed in all the layers of
Right. Right.
clothing and
Right. And we can act out and splash, and a lot of artificial distance disappears. So building community around myself is something that seems to come out of this third culture kid orientation of mine. And this current manifestation was so sweet. This group threw me a surprise birthday party a couple of weeks ago.
Happy
And
birthday.
it was my birthday, 71st birthday. They gave me a blanket, and on the blanket, there are images from my embassy kid life.
Oh.
And I can wrap myself in that blanket and feel their friendship, which is what I did
Aw.
last night. Isn't that sweet?
That is
How
lovely.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
And that it represents your embassy kid story and you're growing up, but it comes from these women that are part of your community now.
They know the whole me. They know the current me, and they know the childhood me. Yes.
All right. Kelly, what is one last word of encouragement or advice you can give to our listeners who are oftentimes in this repatriation stage or thinking about their life overseas and it's been a while?
Well, I come back to knowing that the world is huge and inviting, and that there are so many wonderful places and people and things to know. Be friendly. You have no idea what a stranger might be able to share with you that changes your worldview. Be open to the experiences of others and experiencing things that are maybe not quite in your comfort zone, because it changes everything. It's like the putting your foot in the river changes the course of that river, and you can never undo it. Um, I relish the way I grew up that has led me to having this multicultural dimension to my life to this day. And I wouldn't change it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage everyone to stay aware of the big, big world that we're all a part of.
As we land this interview, we hope that you have been inspired by Kelly's stories. For 10 years, she explored her new role as an independent adult in the U.S., her bicultural identity especially expressed through the Spanish language, and her dancing and fitness teaching, which helped her find her place. She eventually finished her university, went into urban affairs in the New York governor's office, and had a family. Even today, her good community building skills find her in the pool organizing a diverse group of women into sort of a new family unit, enjoying each other in their retirement years. No matter what leg of the journey you're on, friends, we are so grateful you have brought us along with you.
Come back next time to hear from Ginger Darval, a retired nurse and boomerang third culture kid who spent her growing up years in Ecuador, returned to the U.S., and then went abroad again after she was married. Hence, the boomerang.
If you're enjoying our podcast, we'd love it if you would leave us a review in your podcast app. And don't forget, you can visit our website at roundtripstories.com to see photos of our guests and to join our email list. And of course, tell your friends to travel the world with us. No passport, no packing, and no goodbyes required. Thanks so much for listening, friends. We'll see you next time.